with further ado, I don't want to talk about baseball right now. I still want to talk about football. And we're going to be joined here by Mr. Preston Guy, or as I like to call him, the chef. And he is with TigerBait.com. He's one of the better journalists that covers not only LSU, but college football in general. And, is also a good friend and colleague of mine. Preston. Oh, how's it going, man?
What's up, Grant? Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. And how was the rest of your weekend after we left? Tiger Stadium.
One of the things about the kind of jobs that we have is it's the coolest job on earth, and a lot of times, like going back to real life, feels like more work than it is actually being in Tiger Stadium working like we get to. You know what I mean? So yeah, no, we're back, and um, I had to take care of the honeydews and take care of the kid, and yeah, we're actually trying to renovate our studio right now. I'm trying to upgrade this studio, so we got contractors coming in and out. So yeah, a lot of stuff. So I got busier, but I got the news that my co-host on my show, Zach Nagy, got engaged instead of going to the spring game with us. So I guess that's an excusable absence. So that was a cool little bump for the weekend.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember you told me that, and then I completely forgot about it. And then I was like, "Oh, Zach, congratulations!" And then
I told you, I was like, "Hey, look, man, they're starting to get serious. Look, once the girlfriend's mom is buying you multiple $100 pairs of clothing, you're in. You're in good. They want you to stick around." I was like, once that happens, it's a matter of time. So, of course, there was not much time. In fact, I probably said that during the engagement to you. Like he was probably on a knee popping the question as I was saying that. The timing was hilarious.
Yeah. It's really ironic. Congratulations to Zach Nagy. But anyway, let's get it all started. Of course, it wasn't really a spring game. It was more of a scrimmage or an open practice, whatever the hell that LSU wants to call it. But just what was your biggest takeaway just from the spring game? I mean, there's a lot of stuff that happened, but I mean, I think it might be the defense. It has to be the edge rushers. I mean, I know that's probably what you're going to say, but I mean, it just has to be.
I've been beating on my chest since the first spring ball that they go 6 deep with these edge rushers.
Yeah.
These defensive edge rushers are big, nasty, and whose name we didn't even call was the guy who most people probably expected to be the starter was Patrick Payton, and he was one of the only guys who did get a sack. Gabriel Relaford, Jack Pyburn, all these guys looked really, really good. Now, let's preface this and say this could be, and this is one of the things I hate about the spring game practice in its current format, the way it is well, that could just mean your tackles are crap, and that's very possible for LSU. I mean, LSU is essentially breaking in 4 new offensive linemen, possibly 5 new faces at new spots if DJ Chester scoots over. And for spring football, they didn't go with any of these hot name transfer portal guys or any of the 5-star offensive linemen that they brought in. They went with the familiar faces, which I think was a bit shocking for a lot of people. Particularly in the interior offensive line, where the one guy who's returning from last year's all O-line really was disappointing at center last year in his first year, and that's DJ Chester. So I would say this, and these go hand in hand, of course, because if the defensive ends are racking up 6 or 7 sacks in one day, it goes without saying that, well, the offensive line is a concern. So biggest takeaways I would say is offensive line is concerning, but the defensive ends are impressive. Now, that being said, you look at the defensive ends just in practice. I mean, you could tell looking at this, guys, that was a deep and physical room. So I'm leaning toward the offensive line is probably an average unit, and the edge rushers are an elite unit at this point.
Yeah, and you also have to look at this aspect too. Is that most of the edge rushers, got Jabari Butler, Jack Pyburn, Patrick Payne. Those guys have played 4 years of college football at least. Jabari Butler is about to play his 6th year college football, and the first team stars at the both tackle spots are freshmen or sophomores. So it's not like there is an experience factor that, you have to look at. I mean, I think that's probably part probably why they were so dominant on the edge. But then also, it's in my opinion, it's also just the spring game. We've seen something like, for example, Caleb Jackson looked like he was a world beater at running back during the spring and fall, and then just never really carried into the season. So I mean, at the same time, I look at this and I'm like, well, that's concerning, but also know, okay,
Right.
it's just the spring game. How will they look against a team like Clemson?
Yeah, and look, it feels like in recent years the spring game has been even less indicative of the quality of product you're going to get. And my theory behind that is that in this portal era, it's just very difficult to put these rosters together. Not to mention, there's a post spring portal that just opened last night with wild moves like Nico. Well, we'll pronounce his name I'm Oliva now, but you know these guys go into completely different teams, and your roster is literally incomplete in spring, and that used to not be the case. Usually, it's like your roster's good to go. You're waiting for the freshmen. You got 3 or 4 out of your 25 freshmen, but maybe they look great or cool, but for the most part, outside you got injured guys out, you got guys maybe grade issues working their way back into the roster, but you get to see the team, and I think that with all this portal jibber jabber going on, I mean, I think that yes, the roster might be there, but this is not the team, right? There's a lot of guys who still need to gel and find their spot. So I think it's pretty unindicative. Not to mention the scrimmage we saw. I mean, it really was what they called it, an open practice. You didn't really get to see the team line up and put anything close to a realistic stat line together. Like, one thing that stood out to me is the opening drill was, I think they started at the 35-yard line with their drills, and they kind of just moved the ball like a first down every single play. So it's like even if it was a 3-yard gain, they're giving them a first down until they're just working out the muscle memory of it. So it is really, really tougher than ever to get a true gauge of the team. I'll go ahead and say this. We have less of a gauge on this team from this spring than any LSU team I can remember.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, if you think about last year's that, like, even last year, like, you could say the same thing about last year, but at the same time, you had an idea where this team's ceiling is at. For this team, you had no idea because
Right.
on paper, this is easily the most talented in a team that Brian Kelly's ever had, and also the most depth that he's ever had as the head coach at LSU. But we won't know anything really until they play Clemson. But even that Clemson game, we don't know how that team's going to look because
Yeah.
obviously it's a 12-game season, and then of course you got the SEC championship games you make, and also the playoff. And we saw that
Right.
with Ohio State last year.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's a non-conference game and it's game one, but I can't tell you how much pressure is on Brian Kelly to win that football game. The last time LSU won an opener, Joe Burrow was the quarterback in 2019. Brother, it's been a long time. If you weren't kids born that day are starting kindergarten, like it's time to get an opener win, especially here in Louisiana where we go all summer after baseball. Basically, after baseball, there's a 100-day craze just thinking, obsessing about football, and the emotional letdown of this city and state when you're waiting all that time, you got a big opener, you're excited, and you lose. Man, I don't know how much more that these fans can take. You got to win this opener. It is as important as any opener I can remember.
Yeah, I mean the last time that LSU won their opener was against Georgia Southern, and that was kind of like,
Yeah,
oh, we
yeah.
could throw the ball down the field, and then
Hey,
the
that was a
next game,
cool one.
oh, we could really throw the ball down the field. And of course, that was the famous game in Austin where Joe Burrow threw for nearly 400 yards, and the rest is history. But also I know you mentioned the opener. Also, yeah, LSU fans have been waiting for a season opening win. It's but like you said, it's been since 2019. I mean, the the streak started actually in the Orgeron era where you lost against the Mississippi State team and
Mhm.
they broke the SC record. I honestly, the thing is, I remember telling my dad, it's like, Dad, if they're gonna lose that game. It's like, well, how do you think they're gonna lose that game? It's like, because they're going against Mike Leach for the first time. Like, no, like if you go against Mike Leach for the first time, you're already at a disadvantage, especially with a team that was lost a good bit of players from that 2019 squad. But yeah, like I mean, it is a game LSU can win, but
Yeah.
it's not a neutral site game, and I think that in the last few season openers have been neutral site games. USC was in Las Vegas. Then on top of that, Florida State, one game was in New Orleans, the other game was in
Orlando.
Orlando.
Yeah.
And this game, you're going to Clemson, South Carolina. I mean,
Hey,
that's the
hot
other
take.
depth out.
Give me more of that, man. I mean,
I
the
know, yeah,
fact
oh
that
yeah,
college football home and homes disappeared maybe, I guess, I want to say 15 years ago, but probably means it was actually about 20 years ago this jazz all started. That's such a shame, man. I mean, and especially in college football where basically you get one good conference game outside of your non-conference game, I should say. That's such a bummer because you play 3 home games against Renowinds, and then your one game is going to be in the Cotton Bowl, really. So that means what basically never happens is Texas in the Pasadena or whatever, or for the Rose Bowl. You never see LSU go to the shoe for Ohio State. You never see games like, remember LSU and West Virginia, that series,
yeah.
and LSU, Virginia Tech. I mean, these home and home series are awesome. You just very rarely get to see these combinations on the field. And one of the cool things about conference realignment, at least, has been, well, at least we get to see some new cool things like Oregon going to Ohio State now, and LSU will get to go to Oklahoma for I would guess the first time ever. So I think that's something that absolutely is a good thing for college football. So I'm glad that they're doing the opener. But that being said, that is a tough one, and it doesn't get easier. By the way, LSU is going to be a long time before LSU has a cupcake opener. In my opinion, I think the administrative team needs to look at their coaching staff and say, well, at this point, it's a weakness of the team. We've lost 5 straight, 3 under Brian Kelly. It looks like Brian Kelly, one of his weaknesses as a coach, is getting his team ready to go game one.
Yeah.
Uh, to help him with that, because that's part of what you're supposed to do as an administration is support the weaknesses of your team, and one of them seems to be that week one preparation. I wish you could get a week zero win, but what do I know, man?
Yeah, and look, and this also kind of factors back into having a young offensive line, right? And it's hard for me to not have Braylon Moore and Josh Thompson as a part of the starting offensive line, and even DJ Chester, whether that be at center or at guard, be a part of the starting lineup because of their experience playing in tough environments, especially like one in Clemson that also could rival LSU. It's a very tough place to play. I can only imagine that game's gonna be played at night. And you got the team running down the hill. You have the East Bank cameras all over that place. It's gonna be a crazy environment. And yeah, like you said, I mean Brian Kelly, and one of the things that I feel like we do give credit to him, but I also feel like that's kind of got lost as the Les Miles getting his teams prepared to go to battle, even if like on paper LSU had no chance against this team on the road because their weakness was quarterback. They still ended up winning the
Say
game, and
what
that
you
was
want about Les Miles, dude. Week one, he was whooping someone's ass.
yeah,
Oregon 2011. I mean, even Mississippi State '07, where it was, I think it was 45 to nothing. It was crazy. I mean, the defense outscored Mississippi State in that game. It was yeah, man. It used to be the case where game one, LSU's coming to town. You're getting your ass whooped. Like, you don't want to play LSU game one, and it's been hurting. I gotta say, having been in Baton Rouge my entire life, there is something truly magical when LSU has a big game week one and they go out and they kick someone's ass. That the whole city is lit up. You go to church the next morning. The pastor's all hyped about it. How about them Tigers, baby? I mean, there just hadn't been very many. How about them Tigers week one here in Baton Rouge? In fact, in half a decade, no pastor has been able to say, "How about them Tigers" on Sunday morning after week one. So that is why it's almost a cultural thing. It's a cultural within the people of Louisiana that you do that, and we just hadn't been able to advance that culture in half a decade. And culture is kind of one of those things. It goes away too long, it starts to fade away from your culture.
Yeah, kind of taking it back to the spring game. A player who did kick ass was Harlem Berry. I mean, if you
Hmm.
want to talk about first, I know it's a spring game, and I know maybe sometimes we win against the twos and sometimes even the
Right.
threes. I mean, it was very encouraging to see Harlem Berry just not only get the playbook down, but just see Harlem Berry be Harlem Berry. He had 5 rushes for
Right.
like 53 yards. He had 2 catches for 22 yards. That's with the scrimmage stats combined that we put together and that was really
Yeah.
different. We had to get our own stats, but Harlem Berry looked the part. I mean, I know it's only the spring game, but I like what I saw out of Harlem Berry. You need to see that because you're kind of unsure about what the running back room is supposed to
Yeah.
look like week 1.
Here's the thing, man. Everybody likes to overreact over what happens in the spring, but at the same time, it's what you have to go on these guys. Let's put it like this: what should you be more excited about with Harlem Berry? His reps in the spring game against LSU and his first live action under the lights in front of fans, right? Or what he did against 2A football in New Orleans?
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Like, yeah, he is a 5-star for a reason, and what he showed should excite fans. So, look, I have no issue out there saying, look, Harlem Berry looks sharp all spring. He looks quick, nimble. His hands are awesome. He caught a ball one-handed over the shoulder that Michael Van Buren he sailed it, and
Yeah.
Harlem Berry was able to hold that in, and that was good. Yeah, Harlem Berry will play this fall,
Oh
and
yeah.
even Brian Kelly confirmed that. And running back is kind of one of those spots where I care less about who the starter is versus who's going to play, because in this day and age, I mean, you're going to play at least two guys. Two guys getting 10 carries, that's easy to do. Absolutely, that's easy to do. Now, whether or not they're able to make something more of that or get some separation, we'll see what situations are they going to use them in. Uh, I, my argument would be that in third down passing situations, it should be Harlem Berry out there because of his hands. Now, I don't know how he is as a pass blocker. Probably needs some time to develop in that category. But that being said, he's just a true dynamic weapon. He glides. He probably doesn't have the top end speed that Caden Durham has, but I think he's a better accelerator. I think
Oh yeah.
he hits the hole. He gets to top speed a little faster than what Caden Durham is, but Caden Durham likely has more of that once he gets there. But Caden Durham's also more muscly, so I think the Caden Durham and Harlem Berry 1-2 punch. I really like that. And Caleb Jackson is currently your number 2 back. But and look, by the way, in the tackle drills, Caleb Jackson looked awesome. But until Caleb Jackson shows it to me in live reps, I'm just going to assume that it's more of the same from last year. I want to see him. Caleb Jackson, if he could run through a tackle and fall forward, would be a substantially better back. The problem was last year he had no room to run, and every time he got hit at the line of scrimmage, he would take a seat. You can't do that when you're a big, bowling 220-pound back. He might have dropped a little bit of weight, but he hasn't slimmed down entirely yet. Hopefully, he can slim down and get back to more of a speedy back and less of this bulking bruiser, because clearly that's what he's better at.
Yeah, definitely. And also Harlem Berry, I saw him play before. Saw him play in high school. And I know it's against 1A 2A competition, but
Mm-hmm.
the games I did see, like the games I did see was against Riverside, which is one of the better 1A schools. You generally have players that probably have. I'm not saying the same talent as Harlem Berry, but it's
Yeah,
better
look,
competition. And
Riverside's a solid school. I mean,
yeah, oh yeah,
it's solid competition, but like at the same time, it's not like he's rolling out against Edna Carr. You know
yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. I know. But the thing was that it looked cut a corner, and it seemed like it's about to get tackle, and he just kept running and running. He's more of a
Right.
guy. Cam Durham's like speed is from the get go. Harlem's kind of builds over time. You think you have him, and it's almost like Herschel Walker, where he looks like you got him, and then I mean, I know that was high school, but that's the kind of speed he has. It's a different type of speed.
Yeah.
But you brought up Michael Van Buren. He also looked pretty good as well.
He in the spring
And that
game he had some good throws for sure.
I mean, he had some ones where
Yeah.
he missed
Yeah.
it, but it's still encouraging because last year when Garrett Nussmeier, when you had Garrett Nussmeier and then AJ Swan, that's why I felt like Garrett just felt like okay, I can't run because if I run, if I get hurt, then AJ Swan has to go in. And we
Yeah.
all saw what happened when that did actually happen against Oklahoma. You're like, oh, we need to get Garrett back there as soon as possible. But Michael Van Buren, the fact that he has played a whole season of college football as a true freshman, he kind of got thrown out there because of some injuries. But he still looked decent. And also you have the dual threat ability as well. And the reason I bring up the dual threat ability is because you also have a guy like Juwan Johnson, who you saw a lot during the spring scrimmage. You have him in red zone doing wildcat packages and out on the goal line. And really, the whole goal line thing was what the LSU did was very encouraging because you got to see Joe Sloan really get into his bag of tricks. And of course, Brian Kelly mentioned in the press conference that that's why they didn't want anything broadcasted because they have a bag of tricks. But Juwan Johnson, I mean, just what kind of impact can he have just in the red zone, especially considering LSU's red zone woes last year? I mean, it was bad.
Look, I don't want to get carried away, but I do think Juwan Johnson has earned some short yardage packages. He is not only a good runner, but he's stout. He can hit the hole with some intensity. I mean, he is a strong, big-bodied guy. I do think he can throw well enough against, like Brian Kelly said, against cover zero situations. I don't necessarily trust him running the offense for a full 80 yards, but in goal line short yardage situations, I would love to see it. LSU ranked 94th in the country last year in red zone scoring touchdown percentage. And that's so awful. It had me looking at that Mike Leach tweet that came up yesterday, where he said that he once asked about getting a little person and throwing him over the line of scrimmage. I was like, hey, yeah, maybe they could help LSU out a little bit. Throw a dwarf over the line, like Gimli in Lord of the Rings. Toss me. Like, it couldn't hurt. I mean, because LSU was just bad. I mean, real bad in the red zone last year. Bad to the point where this offense that's just very, very good really just couldn't put points on the board. You would look up a lot of times and like against Florida, you're outscoring them. I mean, out yarding them by a lot, like 150 more yards than Florida, yet they found a way to beat you. Uh, you got to improve in the red zone. You got to get more creative. Nussmeier has to improve in the red zone, and you got to do more interesting stuff. You got to pull away from the RPOs in the red zone. If Nussmeier is not going to pull it and run, there is no run option threat to it. It's just a pass that you have to throw out more quickly. There's no run. So you have to really work on these things in the red zone. You have to get more creative. I think you need to get the tight ends more involved. I think Trey'Dez Green and Bauer Sharp this year might be better than um let me phrase this carefully. Okay, Mason Taylor and last year's Trey'Dez Green, meaning the Trey'Dez Green who wasn't ready to play yet. I think we could be on the verge of seeing something special out of Trey'Dez, and I love what I see out of Bauer Sharp. Neither one of them are as good as Mason Taylor. Let me be very, very clear about that, but particularly in terms of being a complete player and blocking and all that jazz. But I like what you see out of the two of them, and I like a lot of what you're going to get with this team. And look, big problem last year was your run blocking, and you're going to have 4 or 5 new faces out there one way or another. So, I mean, hopefully the new 4 guys are not as bad as the last 4 guys in terms of blocking in the red zone.
Of course, yeah, the most infamous examples of LSU's offensive line was against USC, and that cost you the game. There was several times in the game where LSU had opportunity to score a touchdown
Yeah.
deep inside USC's territory, and
Yeah.
they just couldn't do it. And USC won the game because they ran the ball into the end zone at the goal line. So it's just kind of the irony there. LSU struggles with the goal line compared to USC's success at the goal inside the 10-yard line. But another thing, and this has kind of been a reoccurring theme throughout the spring, and really has kind of gotten underlooked, has been I really think the safeties have improved. I know it's just the spring, and of course, a lot of stuff has to happen. Of course, we still, we're about 8 months or less than 8 months away from LSU season officially kicking off. But I really like what I've been seeing from not only Tamarcus Cooley, but the rest of the Javion Toviana, of course. but the rest of the underclassmen stepping up, like Joel Rogers was stepping up. And of course, Deshaun Spears has been improved as well. But I think that was been encouraging. The most encouraging thing about the safeties, you desperately need those underclassmen to step up.
Yeah, and again, it's one of those positions where you look at what you got out of safety last year. It was basically as bad as you could possibly get. Just objectively speaking, I know the defense was greatly improved last year, and there was a lot of spots where they looked a lot better, but your safety was not one of them. So you got to get more out of that. You got to get caught up to at least average SEC play at safety. You're going to get some help. Back there. Can Jordan Gilbert improve? He was not very good last year, but we'll see. Hey, you know who else was unsung? Taviano in the spring game. Now, not in coverage, but in run support and tackling, he was all over the field.
Yeah.
So between him, Joel Rogers, and maybe even Quad Wilson gets involved.
What's it?
Tamarcus Cool.
Yeah.
What's that?
Was it Austin Osbury?
Austin Osbury.
He's been
Yeah,
looking really good too.
hey, the LSU administrative sons on the team,
Yeah.
the Wilson and the Osburys. Hopefully, you get something out of them. I don't know if any of the safeties are bringing in from the freshman class. Look at Jacob Bradford, Jim Coyley, Jace Thomas. I don't know if any of those guys are going to be quite ready to play SEC ball, particularly without having a spring under their belt. But I think with the guys we're talking about, you're in okay spot. And then if you can slide over a corner, which you didn't see in spring ball, maybe they watch some tape and see what they get in the portal. Because remember, we were talking about this isn't the team yet. Well, there's another portal open. They might go get a safety. They might not. We'll see. We'll see what ends up there. But you've also got a lot of guys at corner who have played a lot of big time football. Think Jakeem Jackson. Think Mansour Delane. Think PJ Woodland, who had an outstanding interception in the spring open practice on 7-on-7s. You know, a lot of these guys you might take a look at and be like, wow, we're good at corner. Maybe these guys can be a rep. Maybe Ashton Stamps is a guy who we've seen play corner and have some moments, but we've also seen him have some bad moments. Maybe the Jalen Mills treatment is in order for Ashton Stamps. Maybe give him a look at safety. We'll see, man. I think maybe the safety room. I think the corner room is in good shape. The safety room might be a little lacking, but I think if one of those corners is capable of sliding over and playing safety at a high level, then I think your defensive backfield as a whole should be good. But I think right now, with the way things currently stand, I think you've got a stacked corner room and a little lacking in your safety department.
Hmm. I also have a question about the special teams. There are times where it seemed like the kicking game was a little shaky, and even the punting game at times was a little shaky. Grant Chadwick boomed a punt, one punt, and then the
Yeah,
next punt you're like, ugh, that wasn't a great punt. I mean,
yeah,
you
but
kind of concerned about the kicking game going into the season.
the least I've been in a long time.
Yeah.
I think Grant Chadwick is by far your best punter. I don't think it's particularly close because you saw that booming punt from Chadwick, and then you followed it up with Peyton Todd and Badger Harja, and you're like, a little underwhelming on the kicks that they did following that act. And we've seen a full season of work out of Grant Chadwick. It's not like there's a system he has to adjust to. You know what I mean? Like you snap the ball and you punt it. That's about it. I mean, maybe you could argue the coverage team and how that impacts his numbers. Okay, whatever. But I mean, Grant Chadwick was basically an all-conference player last year, so I think they should be greatly improved in that department. And then Damian Ramos, he is what he is. I'll say this on the kicking spot: Aaron Burrell, he's got a leg on him. Now, I don't know how consistent and reliable it is, but I do think he's got about 5 yards more range than Damian Ramos, who we know really kind of tips out at about 55. So if you need anything longer than that 53, 54, 55 range, whatever it is for Ramos, I do think Aaron Burrell adds a little extra leg to you in that situation. So I think the kicking game will be improved, but that being said, it really wasn't particularly good last year. And I think there's a lot of room for improvement before we're talking about a good or even great unit in those departments.
Yeah, definitely. And I got one last question before I let you go.
Okay.
What are your overall thoughts about Harold Perkins moving to star? Of course, right now we know that Austin
Mm,
Osbury is a starter right now at star, but of course, when Harold comes back, he will be the presumptive starter. What are your feelings just about that? And you think it could work, just considering the fact that his freshman year, he looked fantastic, but that was when he kind of burst on the scene. People were
right.
still trying to figure out who he was, and he was also just a freshman. But sophomore, junior year, everyone kind of knows who Harold Perkins is, so they know how to game plan him. And then also, he's not really the greatest inside backer, but he also can't be as effective as the outside anymore because he's a smaller linebacker, and also people know who he is now. So you
Yeah.
think this move to star could really not only benefit LSU but also benefit him?
Yeah, if you look at the Pro Football Focus grades on his coverage from the linebacker position, he was one of the higher graded linebackers in the SEC in terms of his coverage skills. So there is a big argument that, okay, well, maybe that star position is perfect for him because it's kind of a hybrid and an aggressive role where they play you up in line of scrimmage, but they're also going to man you up on a tight end from time to time, like a linebacker safety mix. I think it depends on how they use him overall. I'll say this: that they use him like they used Major Burns last year. I'm a little iffy on that because Major Burns they were really dropping into a lot of zone coverage, and of course that wasn't great for Major Burns last year. But uh, ultimately, here's the thing about Harold Perkins. You've tried putting him out there as an edge rusher. Okay, it looked great for a while, but no one's catching you off guard anymore. You know what you got there, and I think he's way too small to be an edge rusher. We're talking about a 6'1", 220-pound player. Linebacker, you've put him there, and particularly in the middle, wasn't great. So then they switched him back to outside linebacker last year, and it still was kind of quiet. In fact, you could argue that the linebacker play improved after his injury, which is never a great spot to be evaluating. So my ultimate take here is that Harold Perkins, I think none of us are ready to just give up and say he's not a talented player. I think a lot of people can still see the talent oozing all over him. He moves well. He's got lots of speed. He is an aggressive player, but ultimately you got to find a fit for him. And if that means giving him a try at this star spot, I'm all for it. But and there's some evidence to suggest it might be the perfect fit for him, but he's going to have to continue getting better and better in coverage skills. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, definitely, Preston. Definitely, Preston. But anyway, thanks, Preston, for joining us today. And also, can you tell us where we can find your work?
Oh boy. Look, here's the deal. Almost anything I write, record, whatever it may be, you can find me at tigerbait.com. But if you want to keep up with my content on a more casual, basis, you can always follow me on Twitter, guys. It's at pguy77 is there at the bottom of my name. Just go check me out. You get some bangers like the oldest Crawford I put out today. By the way, I really do like Dakotas Crawford. I covered him when
Yeah,
he was a kid as a recruit, and I had to DM. I said, "Hey man, nothing but love. Best of
yeah.
luck." Uh, but if you want to keep up with me, just follow me on Twitter for most of my stuff. That's the best place to keep up with it. But you can also subscribe to the LSU Tigers on Tigerbait YouTube channel, and that's where we put out my show during football season.
Yeah, man. Preston, thanks for hopping on, and I'll see you later. I don't know when that will be because, of course, football season's kind of dead right now. But we'll
Mm.
see each other eventually.
Hey man, look, enjoy the hiatus. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Because once football season comes, we're grinding.
Yep. No fall weddings.
No fall weddings allowed. That's
Yes,
right.
sir. All right. Thanks. Thanks, Preston.
All right, bud, take it easy.